morning, Reverend. How are you doing today?
Extremely good. And yourself?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Indeed, I'm very glad to be here and, of course, to discuss the merits and demerits of Bill 7. But before we do so, it should be known to the public. I mean, this is my view now. First and foremost, I always do this disclaimer because, you know, politics can be so emotive, and so because it's so emotive, people tend to pretty much throw their brains out the window, just like religion. And so I always put a disclaimer so that it's clear that when it comes to my position as Rev. Walter, I'm very strong-spoken about what I stand for. I'm not afraid to give my opinions. I have always been a supporter of the current administration. I believe that President Hakainde Hichilema and the UPND have done a phenomenal job when it comes to administering this country in terms of the economics of it and some good governance tenets. So that bit cannot be taken away from this administration. However, it is obvious that we have a very, very big challenge when it comes to this particular situation now, in that we have this Bill 7 that is being run, and from the look of things so far, the process leaves much to be desired, and the trust has been lost. And for me, those are the two biggest minuses to the entire thing. And I think, to quote Costa on one of his interviews with the minister, you do not want to compromise process over content. And I think that's a very important thing to do. No matter how good something is, if the process is questionable, then you have already lost the fight. And I mean, at the end of the day, even if we discuss this, we know that they're going ahead with Parliament. But I can tell you the process and the trust that is required for a document of this magnitude has already been lost. And that posterity will judge. So over to you there, Shekinah.
Thank you very much. And actually, speaking of the same process over content, so far, would you say from just inception with how they introduced Bill 7, was it produced, or rather was it introduced in the right manner? I mean, we have seen also same with Bill 10 as well. It seems like it came on the scene and immediately there was opposition.
That's the problem. You see, the whole process, I mean, look, Zambia has always had a bit of a challenge when it comes to the constitution. We have a record for this. And for whatever reason, every administration that comes in, they never choose to learn from history. So we go right back to the same issue. I mean, it would be really good if for once we had a process that everybody would agree that this is a good process, and that requires time. This particular process is absolutely 100% reminiscent of Bill 10. It's deja vu. We are literally going through the same playbook again. And that's what makes the whole thing very sad. I mean, the reason why it even was deferred in Parliament is because, well, there was already arguments against the process, and of course our head of state always states that he's willing to dialogue. But even though he's willing to dialogue, they're not listening. At least if they could listen to the major concerns about the process, then I think we would be talking a different issue. But that's not being done. So it's one of those situations where you're saying, okay, let's dialogue, but everybody's got a stance. And again, even though I'm on the side of withdraw the bill, which is the Oasis Forum side, I understand where government are coming from when they say, but they're not listening, and these are saying, no, but they should listen. So we've got a deadlock. But that doesn't change the fact that when you have civil society organizations and, you know, groups of the caliber and pedigree of Oasis Forum, and people can rubbish all they So to rubbish them today when even our president is on record supporting what they stand for and how they go about it, as seen in Bill 10 and many other critical junctures in the history of this nation, is a little bit not right. I'm trying not to use the word hypocritical, but for me, it's not right. It's not right. It means it's a U-turn. I mean, whichever way one wants to look at this is a 180-degree U-turn.
So then, which goes back to the question, like you did touch on, it seems the government, this is something that we've seen multiple times with different governments in power, other different administrations, if I should say. Why is it? Why do we keep repeating the same mistake? Why is it possibly, do we always bring it back whereby it seems like it's a bill that's thrown to the people rather than coming from the people?
Shekinah, the answer is because in the words of the Justice Minister in Costamansa's interview, also the words that she used, more or less. She said, look, I'm looking at this thing now from a different vantage point. I'm in the seat of the Justice Minister, and there are things I did not see, which I don't know, you can judge what that sounds like, Shekinah, but certainly it does have an element of almost dishonesty. Because how do you turn around and say, no, this is really good, we just never saw or considered it, some aspects were not read, and again you're looking, I mean, a whole bunch of items that are on the current bill were in Bill 10. So what has become good about Bill 7 when Bill 10 was rejected with virtually every item that's on the current bill, of course, with a few exceptions, there now. So that's the issue there, Shekinah. And the answer, why do they all keep doing the same thing? Answer, because when you go into the place of power, you see things you didn't see before. And that in itself implies that there's much to lose, to gain, if they can get these things to pass when they are in power. You see, so the whole thing is elitist, sorry to say. The whole thing becomes elitist. It's about when you're in power, meaning you're an elitist, high-ranking person, then it means, oh, this thing is different. I didn't see it this way. It sounds almost laughable, Shekinah. It's quite tragic, if you ask me.
And I'll continue with the same conversation with Oasis Forum. Unfortunately, we have heard of rumors going around that possibly why they are against Bill 7, it could be the fact that the opposition is paying them. Or rather, on the other end, as we did get to hear on Monday, it could be the fact that they were not chosen, or members or people within the Oasis Forum were not chosen to be part of the technical committee. Therefore, there's a bit of bitterness, and therefore, they're the opposition to Bill 7. Is that a proper ground to stand on for that?
That sounds really, like I said, for me, that really just took it to the next level. I was like, really? And I think to answer that, let me quote our Republican president on a tweet he did on the 16th of June in 2020. I'll just read his words, and I think these are going to answer your question. He said, a good piece of legislation doesn't need to be heavily marketed. It speaks for itself. There's a reason why competent institutions such as the Catholic Church, the Law Association of Zambia, and other well-meaning stakeholders are against Bill 10. So are you telling me in 2020 they were not sponsored by ruling party or by other parties? So in the English saying, what's good for the goose is also good for the gander. When they were in opposition, Oasis Forum, Catholic, the Law Association, and all the other CSOs were on the right side. They were doing the right thing, and they didn't need legislation. They didn't need to be representative of official MPs to speak what is good. At that time in 2020, that was okay. So what has changed? So to say that no, they are being funded by the opposition, I think is a little bit under a low belt, because we all know the opposition itself is so messed up. It's not even funny. Right now the Patriotic Front have two factions. Almost the same thing that happened with the MMD back when they were in charge. Same story. So this opposition is all over the place, to be honest. So where do they get the money to pay? Okay, maybe they stole. That's what somebody would say. But the fact that our president, HH, is on record in 2020 making these words, just kind of throws the whole thing out the window, Shekinah.
And continuing with that, we did have Madam Beauty Katebe yesterday who joined us for an interview on Voice of the People. And in comparison, when she said how later on, after they had a chance to speak to the president, which she appreciated that they were given a chance to come together and actually air their views, she said later on, though, they did not have enough time. Unfortunately, the stream was cut because it was quite public. But then later on, they saw when other stakeholders came in, those from the faith-based organizations, civil societies, students, some even traveled from the Copper Belt. And she said within that, they were given ample time to speak their views. But then in that moment, she said it didn't quite sit right, or rather the part that had them slightly, or to some extent slighted, if I should say, was how the other opposition, or rather the others on the other end supporting Bill 7, were given a chance to speak up on it, yet when it came to their side, that wasn't quite given. So would you agree with that they're not given a chance to speak up and say why they're against Bill 7?
100%. I mean, it's like the march. I mean, if we're going to say there should be no marches, then let that be the case. But we know that there were marches organized and people went and quote-unquote picketed, which is something that actually, I don't know, our Zambian constitution, there's this whole thing with the Public Order Act, but technically picketing is not illegal in a democratic setup. When you go to protest against a particular thing with your billboards and things like that, but in Zambia, obviously if you're protesting against the sitting government, you will be in trouble. And of course we saw President was right in saying, no, this thing could be taken over and get violent. But then what they should have done is had a blanket say that, look, let's not have any protests of any sort for or against the, Bill 7 amendment issue. But we saw that they were able to go and march and they were escorted and they made their statements. And then again, on Monday, the whole thing was transmitted live. Somebody told me, well, wouldn't you also transmit live if you know they are supporting versus those who are not? I suppose, but it makes the whole process very skewed. And this is exactly what he said, that when something is good, it doesn't need to be over-marketed. What we saw on Monday was over-marketing, it was just marketing on steroids, kind of. And I won't lie, I'm Pentecostal, I'm charismatic, I'm typically tongue-speaking, from that group. A lot of those people were speaking, that's my group. But the content was cringeworthy, I must say. It was really just depressing to follow. And the fact that they were even given that time was even more depressing. So for me, Madam Katebe is on point.
And continue actually with the fact that you did touch on the fact that you are part of faith-based organizations, or rather part of the faith part of Zambia. Why is it we're seeing that, to some extent, we're split? We're seeing that the Catholic Church, who are part of the Racist Forum as well, but yet who are against Bill 7, but yet other people who are part of the faith-based side of Zambia, they're in support of Bill 7. So, and also or are we against Bill 7? Which is which?
It's always going to be like that, Shekinah. It's always going to be challenging. I mean, it's a democracy after all, so everybody's within their right, I must say, to give their views. And one thing I appreciate about the president is allowing for dialogue, open dialogue without, how can I put it? Without threat to people, even though there has been, wind here and there of threats. For example, the other day, a colleague told me, Rev, you need to be a bit careful with this stance you're taking because these people can be evil. And I say, wow. Anyway, look, I feel personally that we are certainly in a better era now than we were in the Patriotic Front by far. But politics being politics, there's always going to be those zealots who are going to do stuff that's a little underhanded. But generally speaking, let's give credit where it's due. And I think the president has at least demonstrated a level of openness and dialogue. However, that being said, in a democracy, you're going to have those for and those against. And I think what we need to do, Shekinah, is just learn how to be able to differ but without it becoming so personal. Remember, in the words of a good friend of mine, Dr. Nkoma, yesterday, the difference between religious zealots and politicians is that politicians will differ in the day, but believe me, in the evening they'll all sit down for cups of coffee and bottles and glasses of whiskey on the rocks and laugh about stuff. You go to Parliament and you'd be quite amazed to see how much they all interact, even though they are opposition, and sometimes really take shots at each other on the floor in Parliament. This is quite different from religious people. With religious people, it gets very, very personal, and it can be quite... I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And once again, do remember that you can be part of the conversation by calling us up, or rather sending us a message actually. That's either on 0961 690 487 or on 0979 192 485 as we're on Voice of the People. And joining me via phone call is Reverend Walter Mwambazi. We're touching on the conversation surrounding Bill number 7, which has brought up so much. And I actually do have a message, Rev. It says, why is Bill 10, despite being earlier rejected, why was it taken to Parliament where finally it couldn't go through? This is unfair. And this is according to PD from Pemba. I'm not sure if you've got a response to his comment there.
Sorry, I missed that. I missed that part. What did you say again?
He says, ask Rev why Bill 10, despite being earlier rejected, was taken to Parliament where it finally couldn't go through. This is unfair.
Yeah, well, I guess that's why they're going to take this one through. And there's a lot of suspicion at the moment, which is very unfortunate. There's a lot of suspicion that, look, it may go through Parliament because the numbers have been, consistently getting smaller and smaller as far as the opposition is concerned. But at the end of the day, we have to trust the process again, even though we don't. But we have to trust that probably Parliament and parliamentarians are going to do the right thing. But that's going to remain to be seen. If you remember, with Bill 10, the parliamentarians chose not to go. All those in opposition just chose not to go. And I believe the strategy behind them choosing not to go was not because they couldn't vote against it, but it's because strategically they believed there could be some within opposition who may have been compromised. So the party then said, look, none of our members should go to Parliament. They should abscond on that day. And that's basically what they did. They absconded. They didn't go to Parliament. And obviously that meant the 2/3 majority could not be reached. In short, even the UPND itself did not trust its own people to not vote against Bill 10. So they said, all of our people don't go. And obviously if somebody would have gone, they would have immediately been isolated and been seen to be dodgy. So they used that strategy and, well, Bill 10 fell through. So we will see what will happen. We can only wait and see. But many people feel it may go through. And if it does well, like we say, posterity will judge this administration.
And on that, though, on how the parliamentarians or other MPs did not vote for Bill 10 or rather chose to abscond, that has now brought up the question saying that are they not supposed to represent the people? Therefore, them absconding from voting for Bill 10, was that what the people they were representing want? Is that they're not making a decision on their behalf? So then on that case, is that right? Should they also decide to do the same with Bill 7?
These are what you call lacunas. So at the end of the day, sometimes what you do may be right or wrong, but overall, did it work for the good or the bad? That remains a highly debatable issue. What makes the whole situation so ironic is that we're right back exactly where we were with Bill 10, with this Bill 7. That's the irony at play here. And so, again, people are saying, the MPs are there to represent them, so let them just deal with it. Like you people who are opposing, deal with it. It's going to Parliament whether you like it or not. And truth be told, yes, they're right. That's the process we have. And we'll have to go to Parliament and see if the parliamentarians will be able to do what is right. And what is right? What is right is what they were mandated to do, to either vote the bill in or vote it or not vote it in. But it's a very, very touchy, tricky, and extremely untrustworthy statement that is now prevalent at present. That's the feeling. And of course, there are those who are very, very happy, just like Bill 10. There are those who are really happy about it. And then there are those who are not, like us, who are like saying, look, the process. So it again comes back to that very cardinal point in time. Will this thing go through or not? And that's what it is. At the end of the day, I'm telling you, Shekinah, when all is said and done, we're right spot in time.
And we do have a caller on the line. Hello, good morning, Motale. You're through to Voice of the People. May you please tell us your comment, or rather your question this morning.
Good morning, Shekinah. Thank you very much. Good morning, man of God. It's good to hear your voice and hear how you're articulating issues. I want to invite your comment over what I personally would refer to as the unfortunate sentiments which were attributed to one bishop. I don't know whether it's a bishop called Kalesha, who said the Catholic clergy have no right to speak on behalf of the Zambian people because they don't bear children. I found that very detestful, especially coming from somebody who professes to be a man of God. I would like to invite your comment, man of God. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. What are your comments on that particular matter that we did have with, I believe that should be Bishop Victor Kalesha?
Yeah, Bishop Victor. So unfortunate. I know Bishop Victor personally. So, for lack of a better word, I had a Go King Joe drop event when I watched that. I was like, what? And so, the reactions generally across the board are proof enough of how extremely distasteful that was. So, Motale, you are correct. It was an extremely distasteful, completely out of order statement to be made. How long have the Catholic priests stood and represented people throughout history all over the world? How many priests have died for the sake of representing people as Catholic priests? You see, so to come and say they have no right to speak in such a manner was just wrong. Anyway, I'm told he's issued an apology, but of course people are still upset and they're not going to listen. But for me, definitely that was out of order, and I don't know why he had to make such a statement. It was very distasteful. I mean, generally speaking, a lot of things people said that Monday were quite stunning to watch. It was so reminiscent. But I think the Monday thing may have gone a little... No, it's the same. It was reminiscent. I remember, I was almost going to say this was at another level, but no. I remember that there is a well-known bishop who took a well-known chorus, which is sung in relation to God, and put Lungu's words in it, in that particular chorus. And that's on video. And I was like, wow. These church folk can really go to the next level when it comes to, supporting incumbents. So it's not surprising, but it's very sad when you watch that level of speaking, especially carrying people of the collar. So yeah, it was very unfortunate for Bishop Victor to make such statements. And again, like I say, I know him personally, so I was stunned. That's why I've not even commented on my reeling from the statement. I was like, oh, wow, how does he make such a statement? It was very distasteful, in fact.
Now moving on to a rather different direction, we have heard so many different opposing views on Bill 7, but then of course it's those who've taken time to read or possibly read the same bill itself, break it down, and others either be it from interviews such as this or from the news. But then for the person on the ground who every single day all they do is make sure that they are working to put food on the table, and all they're hearing is mainly the rhetoric that's either quite too loud that it makes it out of social media, and now it's on everybody's lips. But what exactly is Bill 7? I think we did see even some posts of people saying, okay, explain Bill 7 to me in terms of Nshima. What is Bill 7? What does it mean? Whether we vote yes or no, what does it mean for the common man? What are we accepting or rather refusing?
Okay, so there are basically about, I think, 12 or 13 items on it. I don't want to go into detail because this will just turn into a Bill 7 breakdown. But there are key items that have been raised. So I'm going to go into them and then give the proposals and oppositions to each one, if that's okay with you,
Yes,
Shekinah.
Yes, it is.
So the first one is A, increase in constituency seats. So go from 156 to 211. So what they're saying is they're going to be revising the composition of the National Assembly to provide for the increase in the number of constituency-based seats from 156 to the number I said. This is to actualize the delimitation report by the ECZ. So the proposal is, of course, to expand those seats in accordance with the delimitation exercise and all that. But the counter arguments are, one, it will balloon costs in an already strained economy. More MPs means more salaries, allowances, and administrative overheads. It's so interesting to note that another MP who is in charge of the Public Accounts Committee, who bears my name, Honorable Mwambazi, actually stated, and how true it is, that one of the reasons that the Germans refused to grant visas for the 18 members of Parliament was because, according to them, the Zambia does not have the fiscal cover for that. Of course, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs disputed that and gave another reason, so we don't know who to believe, but both are on record making the statement. So already the issue about the cost is already a big deal. It's not a small issue. Also, some see it as a political move to create safe seats for ruling party dominance, and of course, the criteria will be, what criteria will be used to determine which constituencies are divided. That particular report maybe I'm out of touch. It was given to the president as in Lungu back in 2020, but I don't know if that report was made public. So I would love to see if it was made public so that we understand the process by which this would be done. So the second item is mixed member parliament representation. This is the one let me first read it out. Revise the electoral system for election to National Assembly to provide for mixed member proportional representation electoral system to guarantee the representation of women, youths, and persons with disability. Now, this, yes, so of course the proposal is it will guarantee the real lacuna is here is when you say disabilities, what type of disabilities are you talking about? Are you talking about physical disabilities, mental disabilities? What disability are you talking about? And what's the proportion? When you say proportional, what does that mean exactly? See, these are lacunas, Shekana, and they're open to very different interpretation, and it can be quite a bit of a hurdle trying to work out exactly what that means. And then women, for me, this particular one, for me, I shoot it and inclusion. And one of the reasons that whole thing has been so problematic is because you stop appointing people on merit and you appoint them on number. You say, no, these ones are people, LGBT, people from minority groupings, we must have somebody there. Now the question is, do you put them there just because they are from a minority grouping, or do you put them there on merit? So this kills meritocracy completely. And of course, bottom line is to bring an extra number that can be easily manipulated, because on what basis are you picking these people? If the bill already exists, then if they have the numbers, they can push it through without really debating it thoroughly. That's another one. And then, of course, everybody agrees with fresh nominations and resignations. So this is the one where if somebody, resigns or leaves, how then do you proceed? What will be the procedure? And I think everybody agrees that an appointment, an appointment by the party in charge of the individual to nominate another person to represent himself going for by-elections is a sensible thing. So that's the one last part. So you'll notice these two, the main ones I said, proportional representation and the increase in the number of MPs or constituencies is the two biggest issues. And you see, let's not forget, China, the process, right back to square one. This process needs to be inclusive. And for me, I personally do not believe that there's any way in which this commission, the technical committee that has been put there, can do all this in such a short time. This is a very emotive and extremely touchy issue. So So they needed to make sure they give it time. But anyway, let's go on. So the other one is, okay, I played that already. Vice procedures by governing by election. So this is to make sure that we reduce the cost. We don't have to keep going for by elections. Like right now, what's her name? Cecilia has been removed, or whatever they've done to her. So which means technically Chawama has no MP. Now look at the period between now and the next elections. It's quite wasteful. It costs quite a bit of money to host a by-election. Why not have the party just nominate another member to become the temporal representation, and of course with the party on which she stood. I don't know how this would work with independents, and that's why I say again that these are things that need to be thoroughly debated and checked before being allowed. Then nominated members of parliament, revise the number of nominated members as a percentage of the total number. Again, that gives quite a large number, and for some they see it as a machination to manipulate numbers when it comes to voting patterns for particular bills on the floor. So that again is a big issue. It is also used, of course, to reward loyalists, undermining democratic legitimacy. So you give too many seats again, which can be nominated by the president. He can use those to twist whatever needs to be twisted on the floor. Then there's harmonizing parliamentary and council terms. For me, I have no issues with this one. Then there is vacancies for ministers before elections. The old one has always been 90 days before general election. And for me, I think I agree with it, because you don't want to have ministers using resources from the government to campaign for themselves. So that would be good. Then remove 2 term limits for mayors and council chairpersons. In fact, one of the biggest ones missing, this one I agree with, but one of the biggest ones missing, which I thought would be part of the list, is also putting term limits on the MPs. You see, these MPs, some of them have been there 20, 25 years. I don't know if they've been there 25 years, but at least I know they've been there 20 years. I think that's too long for an MP. So there should somebody can be an MP before they bring others, but that was not included, interestingly. On the limits for mayors and council chairpersons, I think that's a good one in my opinion. It does definitely bring power entrenchment, but if you look at the local councils and how they work, I think it's very good. MPs in council composition. Proposal include constituency MPs in councils. Well, I'm personally not going to say much against that one, because again, the argument is that they would help bring influence on where development should go. Because remember, there's a big issue about MPs not taking development to their areas. But the truth of the matter is that process should be done through the local councils rather than the MPs per se. But that's a perception. So the bigger issue here is if MPs can come into the councils, they can help drive developmental agendas better, in my opinion. Then next one, qualifications for secretary to the cabinet, no words there. Next one, attorney general and solicitor general continuity, no words there. Redefinition of child and adult, that's interesting, but no issues there. Election petition timelines, I think this one is very important, no issues there. That's about it. So these are the major items. So you notice that there are just 2 or 3 very contentious issues: the MPs and the so-called proportional representation. These are the ones that need to really be locked in and debated thoroughly. Then to a lesser extent, ministers staying in office until days before, well, the other way around, leaving 90 days before. So most of these items are good, and so you realize that the issue here now is the process rather than the content, and that's why the statement, do not compromise process on account of content. Even Bill 10 wasn't such a bad bill, but it also snuck in through the back door some contentious, items. And that's what makes the whole thing become difficult, because the process gets botched. And if you botch the process, Shekinah, you erase trust. And if you erase trust, believe me, in the triangle of governance, trust is at the base. You see, what makes governance work is because people have trust in the institutions that are looking out for the interests of the common man. If you get rid of trust, everything on top cannot work. And in our circles, we teach what is called the 5 dysfunctions model. At the base of the triangle is trust. Above that is conflict. Above that is accountability. Above that is responsibility. And above that are the results. So the results are going to be completely useless. Why? Because the trust has gone. So it starts with trust, Shekinah. So anyway, those are the Bill 10 items, unless there's something specific you want to kind of delve into.
Actually, no, just to keep it a little bit general, we did see that on Tuesday we had a group of 10 opposition leaders who sent a letter to State House, and it's where they got to express their concerns about a variety of issues. And now, they took it a step further as they also went as far as petitioning international and regional agencies such as the United Nations, the African Union, and even SADC to investigate allegations against the head of state. Have they possibly taken it too far? Was this not something that was supposed to be first dealt with in-house before now taking it as far as the United Nations, the African Union, and SADC?
You know, I always find politicians very funny. And I mean funny in an ironic way. Because, back to my statement, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. When UPND was in opposition, they did exactly that. And the guys who went to petition, some of them were in government then, they were also calling out UPND and saying they are, working with interested foreign forces against the good of the people of Zambia, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. So I have no, how can I put it? I have no sympathy, to be honest, with a lot of the opposition people because they were pulling off exactly the same stunt. So it's unfortunate that, for me, it's unfortunate that I feel that our Republican president...
Hello? Reverend, we seem to have lost the Reverend there for a bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, so I'm saying I hope that he's not going to continue this disingenuity with this Bill 7. The opposition are within their right to go to SADC or whoever. I mean, that's what they do anyway. I mean, even our own UPND did that back then. So it's all part of, I don't want to say politicking, but it is in a way politicking because it's, how do you get this to work? So for example, I was completely with the president when he said the protest should be, called off because in situations like that, truly speaking, there's always no guarantee of the safety of the people protesting and whether that can degenerate into something. I mean, these things can be, you can have individuals in there who are stage managed to go and do something bad and then force the police to react and then the whole thing degenerates and then they say, you see, this is the president, look at how evil he has become. Then they use it to attack the current government. So I am completely with HH when he said, don't much, but he should have put a blanket thing. However, this running bodies across the region, it's a strategy and it works in that it further gives a bad reputation to the current president, and anybody would use it because even the UPND did use it. So it comes with the territory, Shekinah, so to say. It comes with the territory.
And now finally, Reverend, as this now will be fought out in Parliament, what exactly can the man on the ground, the person listening, what exactly can they do to ensure that hopefully as the years go along, we never find ourselves in such a position whereby it feels like a document or rather amendments have been snuck up on us and suddenly we're forced to say yes or no to it? What can we start doing now as a nation, as a collective?
I think we need to take on the Oasis Forum strategy that was used against the third term. Just to show you can protest without physically protesting. And one of the most effective methods that was done back then in 99, was it 2000 or 2001? I can't remember. But the strategy was Black Friday and honking. There was a particular time when everybody would blare their horns in protest. So you wore a scarf and you blared your horns. Of course, the government was not amused, and they said, anybody, the police as usual, anybody found, wearing a scarf and doing this will be arrested on sight for causing anarchy. You know how it is. But of course, what people would do is when they see the police, they would just remove their their scarves and stuff and wait, and when they pass them, they put them back on. And the honking went on. It was really something. I mean, the whole Cairo Road, everybody would just be honking on Friday, I think from 14 to 15, I can't remember the time. It was very effective, Shekinah. It pointed to government that this thing you're trying to do, the third term, is not going to fly. And for me, I think that's one way to send a signal of displeasure. We may not be able to stand in Parliament and control what the parliamentarians do. That's down to them. But we can all show our displeasure. And we are saying this. This is what we're saying, Shekinah. There's nothing wrong with the bill per se. What needs to happen is give the process time. Let all stakeholders come on board and let things be done properly. And as far as we're concerned, this is too soon. The time between now and the election is just too soon. This is going to be rushed, and the concerns raised are going to come back to haunt us. I mean, let me leave you with the scenario somebody gave. Supposing they push this bill, it goes through, and then supposing they don't win the election, someone else wins it. What are the implications of that, Shekinah? You see? Because then it means that new group comes in to these rather irksome, clauses. And that could lead things in a completely different direction that we don't want. I mean, how many times do we need to keep amending the Constitution? We know we need to amend it, but let's for once take the process right. And I'm happy the President speaks about dialogue. But even though the President speaks about dialogue, the process has lost legitimacy.
Morning, Reverend.
Thank you so much, Shekinah, and all the best to the people listening. At the end of the day, it's going to Parliament, and there's nothing we can do but just watch with bated breath and see where it goes. If it goes through, shame, that'll be a sad day for Zambia.
And once again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful